Hey everybody, Kevin Hamlin here. Well, this is not the usual walk around the neighborhood setting. I am down in Florida, and a buddy brought me down here golfing for a couple of days. I think he brings me down just because I'm so horrible. I make him look good. But it's a nice break. I've been on the road better part of a month now, speaking at conferences right across the country, and then working with schools. And is it ever a treat to go into schools and work with classes and bands? And rather than a 20-minute workshop at a festival, it's 2 hours right there in your own school. So a big thank you to Yamaha and the Yamaha E2E program for making that possible. Look forward to getting out into more schools in the future. But right now, down in Florida, and here's the first talk, teacher to teacher, on the topic of just slowing things down. And it's a common mistake as young teachers, and I made this mistake too, that you think, okay, the further faster I go, the better it is. And I had a friend, Ed, who was a mentor for me. And in that first year, we used the same method book, and I would see him at the conference in November. And it's like, Ed, I'm on number 50. What number are you on? And that was my measure, how far we were in the method book. And he smiled at me, and he's like, number 50. I said, wow, I'm only like 15 or 20. And I'm like, Ed, come on. And I thought, wow, that's going to be great. And I would meet Ed at the festivals, and his bands were always, always stunning. My bands were always struggling. Some bad tones, bad embouchure, bad posture, a lot of things going on. It didn't sound that good. And I thought, well, I must be not working hard enough. I'll push them harder. And next conference, next year, Ed, what number are you on? I said, I'm on like number 70. And he went, wow, 70. You're moving really quickly. So I'm on like number 15 or 20. And I would think, okay, Ed, see you at the festival this year. And his bands were stunning, and my bands were struggling. And finally, the next year, I said, okay, Ed, look, there's something going on. Why are your bands so good? And I'm trying. And he smiled, and he's like, oh, you're ready to learn now. And I was like, yeah, I need some help here. And he said, look, it's not a race at all. Further, faster is not better. It's only good if the kid is playing right. And the worst thing I ever said to kids is, oh, you sound good, comma, for beginners, period. That for beginners part is a license to play the horn wrong. And I wish horns were a light switch where it was like, okay, it either makes the right sound or it makes no sound at all. But of course, as we know, when the kids pick up the horn, they're making a sound, and it sounds pretty horrible, but they're like, well, I'm just a beginner. It'll get better. It's a lie. It is a falsehood. It is not true in any way, shape, or form. And it's something that you, the teacher, needs to stop saying and allowing the kids to do, because a young person out of the gate, if they do things right, will be able to play a pure single tone every time, as good as a pro. What's the difference between the pro and the kid? Well, the pro can play a whole bunch of notes, and the pro can play a whole bunch of rhythms. But on a single tone, it's pure, it's good. And if it's not, they're doing something wrong. It might be in the embouchure, the setup. They need that TIU face, TU, where there's firmness at the side, there's flesh here in the middle that's loose. TU, that's the setup of the embouchure. Or it could be the air pressure, where they're not putting enough air down the horn to sustain the note. Or they're not holding the horn right. Or they're not using their eyes to look at eye level at something that brings the horn up. These are all things discussed in the different videos on this YouTube channel on a per instrument basis. If you do these things right, and for me, slowing down meant slowing down a lot, but if you do things right and have your students play that pure tone and then start them moving, it is so much better. I want to apologize for the kids that I taught in the early years. Further, faster, better? No. Further, faster, problem. So now when I start beginners, we are 2 or 3 days just on a mouthpiece. For the clarinets, it's the mouthpiece and the barrel. For the saxes, it's mouthpiece and neck joint. Flutes is just the head joint. Brass players, it's just the mouthpiece. But they have to learn the embouchure, and they have to learn the bite on the reed and the head positioning. Putting the instrument with them and having all the buttons and everything else takes their focus away from the initial thing, which is just the part that they have in their hand that actually makes the sound. And you need to understand the mouthpiece section, as I've described them to you for each instrument, makes the sound. Everything after that amplifies the sound. It'll amplify a good sound or a bad sound, but the party ends at the mouthpiece. So we want to make sure that they've got the push, the bite, the fit, everything is right. And yeah, you go a little crazy in those first couple of days because the kids just want to get on the instruments. But I have them having to buzz a pure tone for 5 to 10 seconds on the mouthpiece, where the pitch is strong. Like clarinets, I tell them, look, take this home, and if somebody doesn't tell you to go to some other room or down to the basement or out to the garage, you're not blowing hard enough. It should sound like a bad New Year's party, and they need to learn that push. Then when we finally get the instrument in their hands, and for example a trumpet trying to play that first open G, they need to be able to nail a pure tone. And we teach them tonguing right out of the gate, to start the note, because otherwise ramping up the airspeed will make a mess of the horn will get confused. And we have all of the kids, and again this is slow, for the rest of the week just playing that first tone. And you have to make up all kinds of games just to keep them motivated. Like our classes were 70 minutes. You're making a lot of games on one tone. But once they're nailing that tone, that single first note, and they're hitting bullseyes in the center of the note every single time, then I introduce the method book, and I go slow, where the tone and the sound production matters, and they're hitting pure tones. They are a pro. And there is no saying, oh, they sound good for beginners. They just sound good. And where it sounds like I'm going slower, and I guess in a lot of ways I am, to have them cement in those good tone habits of embouchure, air pressure, the right stance, the right posture, everything, that they can nail those tones. Then once we get into the book, the horn's working with them, and they keep those good habits. And what happens is they start learning quicker because they're not fighting with the horn. And as new notes get introduced, well, that's fine. They can ramp up the air pressure if it's needed on a brass instrument. The fingering on the clarinets is set right, that they're not going to have problems. They're not going to have leaks. And it all works out really, really well. I ended up actually going further with really good solid tones, and my band sounded better. And I think of a kid, I just worked with a school the other day, and this young person had been on the horn for all of 3 weeks, and I got them to play a note, and it wasn't a pretty note. It was a trumpet, and it was just a scratchy sound. It wasn't even pitched. And I backed them up, and in about 10 minutes, on a single note, pure tone. And the look on the kid's face, I wish I had a video of it, because you could see it on his face and you could see it in his eyes. It's like, oh my gosh, that sounds good. I like this. And when they like it, you've got them. They're there with you. They're having fun. The instrument's working for them. So my advice to you, slow down, especially in that first week or two. Get the really good tones, and never say they sound good for beginners. They either sound good or they're doing something wrong, and you don't want to cement in a bad habit. Those habits in the first couple of weeks are going to be cemented. Your body learns by doing. If they learn not to push air down the horn, they're going to learn not to push air down the horn. It's going to be cemented in. Your brain understands right away, okay, you've got to push. But if you have to change a body habit, that's just a tough slug as a teacher, and really hard to do. Habits are habits. That's why they call them habits. And so you only want to cement in good habits. Your body doesn't mind which one it is in the first few weeks. It'll learn a good one just as easily as it'll learn a bad one. But by saying, oh, they sound good for beginners, we're cementing in the bad habits. So we don't want to do that. Slow things down. Make sure the tones are pure. If they're not pure, then figure out what it is. Go to the videos that I've got on each of the instruments. It'll help you out getting those kids started, and you're going to have just such a better time because your kids are going to be happy. Your bands are going to sound great. Who knows? Maybe I'm Ed 2.0. Thanks, Ed, for the advice way back then, and here it is, passing it on to you too. Good luck with it.